Hey there, hi, good to see you, or good for you to see me. All right. Hope you're having a good day. Marvin, your faithful friend, once again, good to be back with you. Controversial moments. Today is a controversial moment. Some of these things I really want to try and stay away from them, but they keep coming. I don't know if you've noticed, but these incidents are increasing. So today we're talking about some a racial issue again and again and again and again. They keep piling up, but this is huge. This is huge on several fronts, and I'll be able to break down some of those fronts so we can have an understanding of how damaging this is across many spectrums. But yeah, so I'm sure by now you caught wind of the fact that there was this scandal, racial scandal, where this picture you see right here depicting a black woman in a certain way. And there's been a lot of these in the past. People just haven't been as sensitive as they are now. I think that the difference right now is that people are more sensitive to these images than they've ever been before. But these things have been there. These guys have been doing this time and time and time and again, and they've been getting away with it. And so, I'm wondering, and I'm asking the question, you can let me know what you think. Was this apology genuine, or it was just for the purpose of sustaining or maintaining business? I don't know what you think, but yeah, I have my own take, but, I probably won't share. I just have misgivings about this apology because, and here's the thing. One of the issues that I have with this apology is the fact that this is two ads we're talking about. I think that what has made big headlines or a big wave on social media in particular or in news outlets is this where we see this black woman at a wedding getting married to this white man, and then there's the father missing, and this is what people have been focusing on. The other one, not so much. The other one has a lot of symbolism with the American audience, or maybe even the European audience, the West. They understand the insinuation here. Most of us, particularly in Africa, maybe Asia, Latin America, might not be very, very conversant with it. But the image of the so-called black person, and like I've told you before, there's no black, white, green, yellow. These guys came up with this theology to just divide and rule. Again, it's been a divide and rule tactic. We need to get rid of this nonsense of black, white, and whatever. Because when we get rid of that, then people won't be offended. We won't be getting red flags on YouTube or on Facebook for saying white or black or this or that, because those things do not exist. All right? But anyway, for the sake of the fact that this is what we're used to, so I'll use those terminologies only for the sake of being able to give you the correct understanding and the correct context. So, so the focus is on this issue of the woman in the wedding being portrayed as a glutton, like she's never seen food before. But the major issue was that the father is missing. And in fact, this is not the first image I've seen where a black family has been portrayed as being without a man figure or a father figure. I've seen quite a number of these before. There was another one that African Diaspora News brought to my attention, or I found out about it through African Diaspora News. But these guys have been trying to portray the so-called black family a certain way, in the negative light. All right? And it's interesting because out here in the US, I meet a lot of Caucasians who are raising children without their father. There's one workmate I had about a year ago, and she had a difficult time. She had to do two jobs, and I asked her why she needed two jobs, and she told me she was raising two kids on her own. And I was like, where's their father? And she just said, I don't care where he is. That's how bad the situation was. But over time, she told me some of the stuff that she did, that he did to her. He was abusive, and just a bunch of other things. But this is just one example of so many women I run into, and I'm talking about Caucasian women who raise their children without a father. But for some reason, our friends in the West, they keep wanting to portray the black family as the one that is dysfunctional, the one that doesn't have a father or a responsible man, giving this impression that these men are always just having children all over here. They don't take care of them, they abandon them. And yet there's more in the other camp who actually do this. And I'm speaking from personal experience. But, this, and I'm glad that there was this reaction on social media, everywhere, on X, which is formerly Twitter, on Facebook, there was backlash everywhere. And Heinz was forced to give an apology. For me, the apology is not enough. There's so many images that need to be withdrawn from circulation, whether it's social media, whether it's advertising. But again, coming back to the other issue of the so-called black man with lipstick around, you see, I'm even saying lipstick. That's because when I look at that image, they're trying to portray that, I keep wanting to say lipstick, the ketchup as lipstick. Now, all of those things, that imagery has deep insinuations. And I really won't say much because, like I said, we keep getting these red flags about things we can say and things we cannot say. I'm glad that African Americans and Africans, and including Latinos and Asians, are now just beginning to think we just need to create our own social media platforms, because we are controlled in terms of what we can say and what we say. And yet you see a big corporation like Heinz, they can do things like that on social media and get away with it. Or even if it's on social media, they can put things in the public arena, and then those things come onto social media and there are no repercussions. So I don't know what punishment Heinz is going to receive. I won't be surprised if they don't receive any kind of punishment. It won't surprise me. But the one thing that I will say is that this does a lot of damage. And that's why for me, the apology that Heinz gave, and remember, Heinz is actually an American manufacturer. They are American. So, and then, that ad found itself in the UK. But talking about the apology, the reason for me the apology doesn't change anything, doesn't do much, is meaningless, is because, you see, once those images get into the minds of people, the damage is done. You cannot undo the damage. And here I've been talking on these platforms about the damage that racism has done, colonization, slavery, and yet these guys, they still find it necessary to drum it in, using images like that. Now, images that portray very, very negative and destructive messages, there are so many. There's one ad that runs in the US. I'm just trying to show you here that these guys, when I say these guys, I'm talking about our friends, the supremacists, the global elite. They're always trying to promote very, very negative images, wickedness, evil, in so many forms, not just to do with race, but it's about sex, it's about family, so many different things. They're always trying to portray negative images, to push evil images. That's how they promote evil behavior. All right? And in this particular case, obviously, the reaction as a result of those images towards black people is exaggerated, is promoted. They promote this bad treatment of black people. Black people being called names and being treated a certain way. This is how they promote these things. So at the back, publicly, they'll come up on public forums and say, "Oh, we're doing something about racism." You look at the Kick It Out campaign in the UK and in Europe, where players now kneel before a game to say they're kicking out racism. These are jokes. Those are jokes. All right? But my thing is, I was talking about how I was giving an example of another ad to just kind of rub it in, give you an understanding of how they use so many different platforms to promote negative images, not just about race, not just the anti-black rhetoric or narrative, all right, or narrative against Africa, saying Africa is poor and diseased and all that. In African people, whether they are in Jamaican or they are in Brazil, but as long as they are African, the dark-skinned people, African, They keep wanting to portray them a certain way. These portrayals, and I was giving an example of another ad that runs, because there's so many ads I can talk about, but there's one ad that I found very, very offensive, very disturbing personally. And this is an ad that shows a young girl growing up with a puppy. So a dog, basically, right? So they're growing up together and they show them playing in the park, playing on the beach. You know, and at the end of this, I know people are going to say, so what's wrong with that? And this is where I bemoan the lack of creativity, the lack of imagination on so many people. How that we are not able to decipher the messages, the subliminal messaging in all these images that they bring to us on TV. And this is why, especially parents, we're not able to protect our children from these distractions. And we wonder why our kids keep getting worse. Partly, they keep seeing these negative images that send messages that stay with them. And those messages grow up with them to destroy them. And they behave in ways that you don't understand. You're asking yourself, where did this behavior come from? I never did those things when I was young or at any stage of my life. And you're wondering, where did these kids get that? They're watching these ads. They're watching the cartoon. You watch cartoon these days. I mean, Cartoon Network these days, not Cartoon Network, but cartoon programs these days. I grew up in my time of growing up. We never saw cartoon wearing boob tubes and bum shorts and things like that. But that's what they're doing with cartoons now. They're really bringing the sexual language into cartoons these days. Animation. Much of the themes in Cartoon Networks is either drugs, the promotion of drugs, promotion of sex, promotion of homosexuality, things like that. And then, so because parents don't check these programs, look at the image, pay attention to the imagery, we wonder why our kids are just turning into something else. Those things don't come from nowhere. They're ignited by these images. But back to, I have a mouthful, by the way, so just stick with me. Back to this ad that I wanted to talk about. So they show this young girl, I think she's about 10 or maybe 8, somewhere there. She's growing up with this puppy, this young small dog. So they're growing up together, literally. That's what the ad portrays. So they're running up and down on the beach, having fun together. And then eventually in this ad, this kid grows up. The woman grows up. She becomes a woman and the dog has grown big, is a big dog. And then all of a sudden they show the woman is pregnant. All the while they don't show you who the man in her life is. And then at the end of the ad, they show this image where apparently she's married and now she's got a baby. No, actually it's before she has a baby. She's rubbing her pregnancy and she's lying next to the dog. And then after that, finally, they show an image where this lady now has a baby. And the baby is on her right hand side and there's a man on her left hand side and then there's a dog on the other side. And the baby is in between she and the dog. So again, somebody's going to come up here like, what are you saying? What's wrong with that? Again, our lack of imagination, lack of intelligence. These people put images in our minds, in the minds of young people. And we just don't see through that. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. I've seen that ad and it just honks me off.
Hey, little bear. A good boy?
Don't worry, darling, about the rest of our
to have Heinz food from this day forward.
through thick and thin.
Come on, baby.
I'll be there by your side.
Oh. I'm gonna love
Okay, all right. Okay.
Hey there.
These guys have gotten away for ages using subliminal messaging for distraction. So this Heinz advert is just one of them. And the reason there was this apology is because of a backlash. It's for the purpose of sustaining the business, being able to keep the business coming. So even though now we know what these people stand for, what they'll keep promoting, especially those of us who are in this skin, I don't even know why we keep giving them our money. Even after this, people are still going to rush to the store and continue to buy this ketchup. And yet, if that was them, if anyone did that to them, they would stop buying their products. But our people, I don't know what it is. Because this would be an opportunity to say, look, we need to stop buying their products. Because we're giving them money, enriching them, and they're insulting us. And they're insulting us. There was a Chinese man, was it Chinese or Japanese? I think it was a Chinese man that made waves on social media about maybe 6 months, 4 months, thereabout. And he said that black people are the dumbest people on earth. And there was backlash, obviously. You can expect that. And I don't agree with him. But these are some of the reasons why people say that about us black people. Because at the end of the day, despite the fact that we know the agendas of these people, people are still going to continue buying that ketchup. They will continue buying it. But if it was them, they will not buy your product. If anything, despite the fact that this skin does not insult them, doesn't do anything against them, they still don't buy anything about anything to do with you. They don't buy your clothes. They don't buy anything you make. They don't come to your restaurants. They don't come to your nightclubs. But this skin is always supporting them. The movies, they make movies with innuendos, insinuations about dark-skinned people. And guess who takes out millions of money out of their pocket to give them to watch their movies? These same people. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time for you to start thinking about your own social media platforms, your own way of doing things, your own things. This is the time. That's what this moment means. I haven't even talked about that face of the black person, the so-called black person with the ketchup, which looks like lipstick. You know, it has a lot of history in America about how our friends, our angel friends, used to portray black people by mocking them. They would paint themselves as dark-skinned people or black people and portray black people with big lips, big red lips and things like that. But some of this is on social media actually as a response or reaction to that same picture I'm talking about. So you can read some of those things to kind of just catch up with what the history is behind such a portrayal of a black person. We should know by now, with all the information that we have on our hands, in the information age that we're in, we should know by now, these people have always had an agenda, particularly against this skin of the man. They want to get rid of him. And they will do it in any way. In any way. Whatever form of destruction they can come up with, they will do it. They've been trying to do this for ages. We've heard, go on social media, you'll find materials of women who explain, particularly in America, who explain how they've been able to turn this skin of a woman against her own. All that is to target the dark-skinned man to ruin him. They've been successful in doing malicious damage to the image of a black man. They've been very successful. Which is why in so many places in America, it's difficult for black men to forge ahead. More black men in America are arrested than any other race. It's not an accident. That ad is just lining up with that campaign, with that agenda. It's just lining up with it. So that ad confirms a lot of things. It's not an accident. And remember, we're not talking about one ad here, we're talking about two. How can two ads be saying the same thing? Is that an accident? See, that's why the apology doesn't make sense. That's why the apology doesn't make sense. So at the end of the day, apology or not, these people are not going to change. As we're speaking, they've given an apology, but they've sat down right now and they're thinking, how can we do that same thing differently without people noticing that this is what we're saying? They have an agenda to destroy the dark-skinned man, whether it's psychologically, physically, medically, whatever, in whatever form of weaponry they can use, they're committed to it. And even after giving that apology, they've just gone back to sit down in their boardrooms and think about different ways they can do that. Think about this. You're advertising ketchup. Why does it have to border on racial lines? Why? You're advertising food. Anyway, let me get off this. Try and move on and just wrap up here. They're not going to change. That's the point I was trying to make. They are not going to change. I don't care how sweet they look. And then listen to this. When you think about this agenda against this skin, it is so real. There was a video that came up on social media. I don't know which other platforms, but I saw it on YouTube, where this young Caucasian boy, I'll call him a boy, he looked like a boy, but I think he's a young man, literally said, I'm going to spread my seed in Africa. Why did he say that? To wipe out this man. So you can imagine a young man, he literally looks like a boy. He's probably maybe 23 or in his mid-20s. But think about a young man of that age saying such a thing. It means he's aware of the agenda against this skin. He's aware of it. Why would he say, I'm going to spread my seed in Africa? Because he knows there's this agenda against this man to wipe him off the face of the earth. These guys have been trying to do it through medicine, through education, through technology, through law enforcement, so many different ways. And you sit there and you wonder, why do our people gravitate towards anything that they do? Whether it's movies, whether it's clothes, whether it's entertainment. If you really knew and understood this agenda, you would detach from them. You just detach from everything. It's the reason for many years I've just not been watching movies. Because at the end of the day, I'm not taking up my money to support these agendas. Look at the movies. Go and look, do your own research and find out how many movies they're now trying to use monkeys to send out a certain message. There's one common series, I won't even mention it here. But we know it. Why do they keep doing these things? And they are making money off you. You pay millions out of your hard-earned cash in your struggle, and you still take out money to give them, to entertain you with a campaign or with an agenda against you.
I am so disgusted by this documentary that just came out on Netflix. This covers the case of Jonathan Mayer, who has fathered at least 600 children. Although the sperm banks say it could be more like 3,000. He was scamming the sperm banks and he was telling these families that he only wanted to help 5 families, when in reality he was doing this 140 times a month and traveling internationally. He's not the only one. He has a group of friends who are also mass donators. There's a group in Kenya that is aiming to have these men father at least 200 babies a year. These are mostly white men, and one of the guys says that he can't wait to bleach Kenya with his genes. This guy was even mixing his sperm with another man and playing sperm roulette. As you can imagine, the women in this documentary are very unhappy and they take him to court. I've never seen anything like this, and any guy who does anything remotely close to this needs to know what you guys think in the comments and hit follow for more recommendations.
So, when you hear that, you just watch that documentary and see a thing like that. Why do you think that is happening? Why do you think I made a video here about a person I won't name, but this guy is a billionaire. He is always in Africa. Wants to insert chips in the babies as soon as they are born. I don't know if they've launched it in Kenya, but Ruto agreed to this, and I talked about it. Why do you think this guy, this American Caucasian guy, why do you think he's doing all these things in Africa? Why do you think he's doing that? Why do you think he's interested in the babies? We've read so many stories in the Bible about the agenda to kill the babies as soon as they are born. We've heard all these things before. These things are not new. They're simply being done differently. And I've told you this before. The reason this man is hated is because he is the one that represents godliness. He is the first man. He is the symbol of all goodness. He's the symbol of love, kindness, genuineness, care, all goodness. And the world has only ever been at peace when this man has been ruling. So what you see is an antichrist agenda. And unfortunately, even these women, they have been indoctrinated to think that these angels are better. And they're turning against their own flesh to help these men, these angels, to implement this antichrist agenda. Because the whole idea of hatred towards this man is not because he's ugly. No. It's about the godly nature in him. That's what they want to destroy. You think if they really believed that you were ugly because of your skin, you think they'll be flying all over Europe, all over America, all over South America to come to Africa, to come and see a gorilla face to face because he's beautiful? Why would you think they would think of a gorilla as a beautiful thing and then think of you as an ugly thing? It doesn't make any sense. They tell you that to simply ruin you because they know who you are. They know who you are. And I've talked about the identity of the dark-skinned man. What his melanin is. How his melanin contributes to his righteousness. That's what they want to destroy. Because they know this is the guy that stands in the way of the evil agenda across the whole earth. This is the man that made the whole world peaceful, loving, stable. Because what they want is chaos. And these other people are much easier to convince than this dark-skinned man. This is the man who has said no homosexuality in Africa. Everywhere else, look at the maps of how widespread homosexuality is. It's not in Africa. It's only in South Africa. Why? There are white people there. Is that just a coincidence? That's why you are hated. It's not because you look ugly. No, that's not true. They know you're beautiful. They know you're arguably the most beautiful person on earth. They know that. But they tell you are ugly to destroy you. Like I told you, what would make them travel all the way from Hungary, Poland, Ukraine, England, France, all the way to Africa into the jungle to see a gorilla who is dark-skinned like you and I, actually even darker, and yet say the gorilla is so beautiful, and yet they tell you that you're ugly? It's not true. They're lying to you. It's all to destroy your mind. So you see there an agenda to erase, to eliminate. So that ad where people made a conclusion to say they are erasing the black man is not an accident. It's part of everything else that is built to destroy this. Again, you women of this skin, it's sad that you help them. You help them to execute a global antichrist agenda. If you understood these things, you would be protecting this man and giving him as much seed, because then you know the world is going to be full of godliness. But lack of understanding, lack of imagination. How do you think North Africa changed? North Africa used to be dark-skinned people. You've seen even videos. You've seen the evidence. You've seen pictures. It used to be very, very, very dark people. How did they change and start looking that way? It's the same thing that this young man is saying, I will spread my gene. I will spread my seed in Africa. They've done it up there. They've done it in North Africa. They've done it in other parts. They've done it in South America. They know they can do it even in Africa. And sadly, you women of this, you are helping to spread this antichrist agenda.